Thank you for having me here. It's always beautiful to be part of these conferences on Prout, and this is already our third one. So today I'm really talking about how Prout expand the idea of resources beyond the mere economic level or physical level, and also how important it is in order to establish and about the economic system on this planet, how important it is to be able to elevate our consciousness as humans. A higher development of our minds will certainly give us the power of changing the world around us and the capacity of collaborating together to create a new society and new forms of governments, overcoming the greed of personal profit, helping establishing cooperatives and creating healthy communities and healthy living systems, including having respect towards the existential value of all life, plants, animals, and all creatures. Prout fundamentally recognizes that the life of a human being needs to develop on all levels, not just primarily on the economic level. People are working, even today, people are working like slaves to merely satisfy their basic needs for living. But as humans, we also have moral, cultural, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual values that needs to be taken into account in order to build a true human society, in order to feel realized as humans living in harmony with our environment. Until now, human society and civilization has been for hundreds of years under the influence of dogma-centered philosophy and systems, first of all, mainly in the religious arena. As all religions have been predominantly dogma-centered, this is one of the reasons why religions can't tolerate one another, and they are creating various forms of fanaticism and aggressions even today. Up till now, we have seen matter-centered philosophy and systems like Marxism and the various forms of communism dominating certain parts of our human society, where the obsession with material survival and dominance is resorting to totalitarian regimes of exploitation and suppression of people, deny the expansion of fundamental levels of life, such as the expansion of the spiritual. Also, our human society has been overtaken by self-centered philosophy and systems like capitalism, neoliberalism, and more recently, the new technocracy, that in this part of the social cycle, as indicated by the founder of Prout, Pierre Sarkar, meaning in the present degenerative phase of capitalism, may represent the ugliest side of this degenerative phase. The ruling of technocracy that is unfolding at present, not only it's about greed, self-interest, and personal profit based on pseudo-culture and propaganda, but in many ways it's about debasing or denying the fundamental cardinal values and rights of being human, further dismissing the innate spiritual aspiration of the human heart and soul. In fact, this retardative phase of capitalism, in this phase, the emphasis is not just about material acquisition, competition, greed, and profit, but there seems to be a calling for submission of humanity under the rule of the merchant oligarchic elite, already advancing, already very advanced in installing the dominance of a technocratic society under the control of artificial intelligence. This technocratic control remains very questionable. because at this stage it may seriously compromise human fundamental rights of self-determination at the expense of human spiritual elevation, freedom, and dignity, and at the expense of the environment and the well-being of all other forms of life on this planet and beyond. Here there is a big problem that it remains still to be solved, and it is of paramount importance to know who is controlling technological advancement. Growth of consciousness in many ways would need to precede any technological expansion in order to make sure that the use of technology is benevolent and dedicated to the welfare of all beings. At the moment, this remains very questionable, and it remains dubious if the trajectory of technological expansion under the technocratic control of the merchant elite that is going on at present is truly happening within the spirit of supreme welfare and benevolence towards all human and all other created beings. However, the most paradoxical thing is that until now, all these systems have been giving so much emphasis on the needs of the body, mind, ego sphere of existence. But at the same time, they completely failed to provide thriving society where all the minimum basic necessities of life are available to all people on this planet, such as food, shelter, medicine, clothing, and education for all people. More than half of the planet population still now is starving and lacking basic fundamental necessities. And mostly everywhere, the lower classes are struggling to provide to their basic everyday needs for survival. Even more so, these misguiding philosophies grossly failed to provide stewardship to the life of all other species. And they flagrantly failed to develop the higher spheres of thought, intuition, morality, and spirituality the human mind and spirit is capable of. And I would like to say that more recently, not only they failed that, but with the advent of artificial intelligence connected to the human body and brain, they may be actively trying to suppressing, curtailing, and undermining any further development of the vast potential lying within the human mind, heart, and spirit. The reason being that these philosophies are based on irrational geocentric and socio-political sentiments that have been systematically enriching beyond any measure an oligarchic elite blind by power and control, as worldwide statistics are proving, while the majority of the world population is left behind. Additionally, as Sarkar says, all these systems have been injecting superiority and inferiority complexes into the mind of the people, as well as sustained fear complex through mainstream media propaganda and government's coercions. Thus, we can say that seemingly the world has not yet seen a balanced human society for all people, also able to fulfill the duty of stewardship that we have as humans towards all other creatures as well. Human society has not yet seen a spiritually centered philosophy and system based on fostering the expansion of human consciousness, cultivating the higher values of humanity, meaning cultivating the awakening of what is the universal divine love that lies at the core of every human heart, helping developing subtle spiritual and intuitional faculties and the capacity to dedicate to selfless service to the supreme welfare of all humanity and all creatures. In this light, not only Prout first and foremost wants to guarantee the minimum requirements of life to all, but at the basis of a Prout system is the recognition that a true human society needs to develop and satisfy all higher subtle values of humanity through the development of morality, intuition, and spirituality. Otherwise, we may never be able to build a true human society where we can all take care of each other with no one excluded. If we want to understand the depth of transformation of consciousness that lies at the basis of Prout implementation, we need to look at the 5 fundamental principles of Prout. There are 5 basic principles in Prout, and if we look at them, we can really see how Prout really can give us, it's a theory that it will bring us beyond materialism, and it really has the potential of making this world flourish into a completely new dimension of existence. The first principle of Prout is no individual should be allowed to accumulate any physical wealth without the clear permission or approval of the collective body. This principle strikes at the very fundamental weakness of capitalism, which is allowing an elite to accumulate such vast amounts of wealth, power, and control, resulting in the impoverishment of millions. These principles calls for limitation on the individual possession of physical wealth, because anything physical is limited in nature and finite. But it's important to notice here that it does not call for limitations on the wealth in the mental and spiritual sphere, because that is an infinite human treasure which should not be restricted. Marxism did not understand this very important distinction between physical and psychic or spiritual wealth. This is why the severe restrictions that it placed on freedom of thought and religion is leading to the downfall of most systems based on that theory. And then is the second principle. All right, and I want to. Second principles of Prout. There should be maximum utilization and rational distribution of all mundane, supramundane, and spiritual potentiality of the universe. This principle refers to the utilization of all universal resources well beyond the physical, as for example, metaphysical and spiritual potentialities are mostly denied or not encouraged in the present-day system. Beyond the physical, all mental potentiality of the metaphysical, supramundane, and spiritual should also be developed. These potentialities are part of the human mind. Maximum utilization is proper use of all the resources and is put on an equal base and puts on an equal base subtle values versus economic values. For example, the aesthetic and entitative value of a forest is no less important than its economic value as wood chips. Rational distribution here means that the minimum necessities should be guaranteed to all, but individuals who contribute special services to society should be given special rewards to encourage their work, thus creating in this way an incentive for everyone to socially contribute at the maximum of their capacities. And third principle of Prout. there should be maximum utilization and rational distribution of all physical, metaphysical, and spiritual potentiality of the unit and the collective body of human society. This principle encourages society to utilize all resources of the universe. A truly healthy human society must develop all this potentiality to harness the treasure of humanity. And this principle also brings attention to the importance of balance between individual good and collective good. The collective body, the collective mind, the collective spirit must be developed. One must not forget that collective good lies in individuals, and individuals' good lies in collectivity. Absence of spiritual morality in an individual will break the backbone of the collectivity. Thus, the spirit of universal welfare should be inculcated in the heart of society that needs to make proper use of all the higher human faculties, morality, and spirituality. Further on, the third principle establishes the subtle value as more important. People with unique artistic talents or scientific geniuses or spiritually advanced persons should be given full scope to develop their talents because the whole society can benefit from these unique human resources. And fourth principle. The fourth principle of Prout. There should be a proper adjustment among these physical, metaphysical, mundane, supramundane, and spiritual utilizations. The utilization should not be confined to any particular spheres, but there should be adjustment among all various utilizations. Meaning, for example, if people having great physical strength are given more importance than others in society, as it actually happened in past eras, this idea may creep into their minds that they are more useful to society than anyone else. Owing to this superiority complex, such physically powerful person may be tempted to hate, torture, or even exploit who is weaker. The same thing may happen with the intellectual's abilities as well. The exploitation during an intellectual era validates this statement. So, along with maximum utilization, there should also be mutual adjustments. It means that among people there must be cooperation and exchange between who is physically more competent or intellectually more advanced. To this end, the physically strong or skilled persons will come in contact with teacher to be initiated into intellectual and spiritual endeavors. On the other hand, those who are spiritually elevated and intellectually developed will have to approach the physically skilled people to be conversant with those type of arts and skills. In this way, we shall evolve a well integrated personalities as well as a balanced society. Fifth principle. The fifth principle of Prout. The method of utilization should vary in accordance with changes in time, space, and person, and the utilization should be of a progressive nature. This principle provides the society with means of adapting to changing circumstances and also calls to utilize the scientific and technological research under the guidance of neo-humanism, meaning keeping always in mind the intention and the practice of supreme welfare for all, thus making sure that science and technology are only used for the all-round welfare of humanity and its societies. At present, who is controlling science and technology seems at times, intentionally or not, perpetrated more harm than good. Okay, so if we can finish the slides, thank you. Okay, thank you. So this tremendous expansion of human consciousness linked to all around human and planetary welfare, propounded by Prout theory, will certainly not be achieved by connecting our own body and brain to artificial automated intelligence as proposed by the oligarch elite propagandizing the Great Reset. They boldly negate even the existence of God. They negate the existence of a divine intelligence residing in the hearts of all, mainly maybe because they think themselves being the only God and the rest of the people. There has been recently Yuval Noah Harari, the advisor of the World Economic Forum, just said in a public speech as a question mark, what will happen once there will be full automation in place? And what will happen to other humans that will not be so useful? So will they become worthless and a meaningless humanity? So to the contrary, true transformation and expansion of consciousness and the development of higher human faculties and potentialities will only happen through the deep realization of the divine presence within us all and in all mundane, supramundane, metaphysical, and spiritual dimensions of the universe. Only the awakening of human hearts and mind to profound divine universal love will solely elevate human consciousness and inspire universal love for all creation with the spirit of being fully in service for the welfare of all living beings. We need this type of revolution of consciousness to be able to implement Prout economic theory and practice as the system for the future on this planet. By coming to terms with a much broader definition of resources and economic resources that must come to include the supramundane, the metaphysical, and the spiritual potentialities of the human mind and spirit, of the collectivity and of the universe. We also needed to come to terms with what we call consciousness, that in the words of the physician Dan Winter, is the biological architecture of the body-mind-spirit system, which is the architecture of consciousness that creates the experience of bliss, that creates the experience of divine bliss in us all. And as Dan says, this spiritual consciousness will never be able to exist in an artificial intelligence computer machine. A biotech body will never have a soul. As a society, in order to truly be able to satisfy, to further develop, to enhance the very large spectrum of human existence and all its potentialities, we certainly need to take into account much more subtle values and needs, considering the full expression of humanity's mind and spirit. This upliftment of consciousness that considers the full developmental expansion and expression of human divine nature will solely happen by creating a parallelism not with AI, not with the technocratic mindless control of a world without soul and without God, as the World Economic Forums nowadays prospecting to everyone, but to the contrary, by creating our parallelism with the universal divine presence, the universal divine existence, and the universal divine will that guides us all. It implies a spiritual leap of giant proportions, calling for a complete divine understanding and lavish surrender by becoming closer within ourselves to the realization and ideation of divinity within us, within our soul. This is the true progress we need to see in the near future to implement an economic theory and practice fundamentally dedicated to the cult of universal love and universal welfare for all, and to establishment of a true human society based on the well-being for all. It's possible that future events on this planet will play an important role in facilitating this giant spiritual leap awaiting for humanity, and consequently a great shift in consciousness. So I'm finishing, and I'm citing the founder of Prout, Pierre Sarkar. With the smooth, natural, and progressive channelization of the psychic urges of the individual and collective mind towards the supreme entity, psychic pabula will be converted into psycho-spiritual pabulum. Then each person will be a Sadvipra, and the whole society will be a Sadvipra Samaj, an Ananda Parivara, the blissful family. So the transformation of psychic pabula into psycho-spiritual pabulum is the only panacea. P.R. Sarkar, 15 January 1990, Calcutta Prout in a Nutshell, Volume 4, Part 17.
Thank you, Radha. Are you done with your presentation? Yeah. I do have a comment from Anjali. Maybe the problem is that the system is detached from from morality. It ignores it. It is seen as obsolete. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And morality is the basis for spiritual development. Without morality, spiritual development cannot happen. Jama, we call it Jama and Niyama in yoga, which are the 10 principles. However, these principles of morality can be found in many other spiritual traditions. And even in Buddhism, they have, or in Zen Buddhism, they have very strong precepts. But they are very similar. All precepts are very similar, and it's about really developing the goodness which is in ourselves, because as humans, we are, the human in Sanskrit is manush. Manush means that being that is guided by mind, manas. Mind can go in two directions. It can go into a material direction, or it can go into a spiritual direction. How can we channel our mind? How can we channel our mind not to go into profit accumulation and greed and all these negative propensities? How can we channel our mind into instead being able to share with others, to have our heart benevolent towards the well-being and the welfare of everyone, not only our own? How can we go beyond this egotistic makeup of our own system, psychological system? And the only platform where we can really bounce off towards spirituality, towards spiritual understanding, and you can say deepening our divine spiritual nature, is the platform of morality. This is our platform.
Thank you. In which way would Prout make better use of the supramundane resources?
Yeah, it's you see, in a way, it's in a way it's already happening, because on the earth sphere we are still very bound to our physicality and our survival survival. Somehow we created a system, and we are into such a political and economic system that culturally, since we are children and we go to school, and then we are practically set up to work in a certain way and to make money and to save our money in the banks, all the banks that I was talking before, that they practically take all our money. And we are set up bounded to a material concept of what life is about. However, there are many other races, and we are into Mahajivishva, so there are already other races part of us, and certainly in contact with us, even if full disclosures are not is not has not been happening yet. However, these races are already having a way to, for example, communicate with each other and with us as well, telepathically, intuitionally. They can travel beyond space and time. So, and they have a technology that actually follows this expansion of mind and this elevation of their mental potentialities. But these potentialities are in us too. They are not only in them. So it's already happening. It's already here. And there is even the possibility for humans, for us here on this planet, to have, you can say, to have the same type of technological advancement, a consciousness and consciousness development. Is just that we are still in a situation politically and economically that traps us, traps our potential in the material spheres of existence.
Okay, thank you. What would be the role of animals, say, in a Protestant society?
Animals?
Yeah.
Yeah, because all created beings, they have their own existential value. Everyone has an existential value. And Prout emphasizes on that very much, that the value is not just economic. The values is aesthetic and existential. And we have to introduce this new type of values into our way of thinking, and into creating a new culture where really these values are felt and revived and followed and felt from within. And for example, this is the reason why many people don't eat animals, because if I can survive very well with so much diversity of food, of grains and nuts and seeds and fruits and vegetable, why do I need to go and take away and destroy the existential value of another very, very developed level of consciousness as it exists in the mammals, in the animals that usually people eat?
Okay. If we develop our spiritual potentials to the maximum, in which way would that have an impact, say, on agriculture or education, the health system? Could you elaborate on that?
What's happening is that really we can develop, or you see, this artificial intelligence, these biotech robots, and that they are creating, they have a place in a future society. They absolutely have a place, because they will be able to help us, to help in having maybe a more productive agriculture, in working less hours in a week, because they will do most of the work, etc. The point is not to have them or not to utilize them, but the point is to know who is in control of this technology. And if we are in control, and if the control is based on utilize them for the welfare of society, so that we can work less hours, so we can have more produce, so that we can better utilize our resources on this planet, then welcome. But the point is to be in control, and to know that the technology is used for the well-being of all humanity.
Okay, any more questions, anyone?
And also, if someone wants to add anything that I may have missed or have not said on this topic, please.
Can't AI be further developed and utilized for the benefit of our society?
You see, I think so. I think so. I think it can very well be developed and used. The important thing is to have a plan how it is used, and to make sure that it's not used to suppress the human potential, and also not used to make humanity and people feel inferior. For example, there are many people now, they think, oh, why not? I will connect to artificial intelligence and I can in a moment, speak 8 languages, or I can read my book in half an hour instead of 3 days. But this is not the point. The point is that, first of all, we already have these these faculties within ourselves, within our own brain. We don't need to be connected to AI in order to develop these faculties. I don't know if you heard, but for example, there was Vivekananda, that he was a very, very spiritually elevated person, and he would read a book and he would know exactly that sentence in what page was in the book, even not having the book in front of him. That means when we develop spiritually, we can completely amplify our mental capacities and our brain power without being connected to AI. We don't need that connection. AI needs to be managed and controlled by us, because we are the one having the divine soul. We are the one born out of a divine nature. We need to be in control of these machines and not the other way around, not them in control of us. This is the whole point.
Is there a possibility for everyone to become a Sadvipra in a Prouty society due to the encouragement of developing our spiritual potentials?
I think so. I think so. One of the bases of the Savipras is, which is really in the fourth principle, is this adjustment, of utilizations and potentiality. We can start from ourselves, which means really we all have this potential of being and the capacity of being very hardworking, like the workers, and of being very courageous and fighting spirit, having the intuition of what's good and bad, and having the courage and the fighting spirits to fight for what is good. And we all, which is the warrior spirit, and we all have the capacity to develop intellectually, to really refine our artistic talents, refine our intelligence, and even more so refine our one-pointed intellect. That means that yes, we study and we become intellectual, but the reason why we do that is in order to understand our ultimate goal. What is the ultimate goal of life? Then bridges intellectuality into spirituality. And we all have the capacity of being very good economically, to survive and to create what we need on a wealth level. So that means all these abilities, a person should be able to develop all these abilities. And this is one of the bases of being in Satvipra, is really to be able to develop all these capacities, and how to say, and use all this capacity to be a complete developed personality. Because more and more we have a complete developed personality, and more people are so, and more we can create a real balanced society with no exploitation, with no inferiority and superiority complexes.